You've probably noticed it by now. Gas prices go up fast, sometimes overnight. A refinery fire, a global conflict, a whisper of supply shortage, and suddenly you're paying dollars more per gallon. But when the crisis passes, the prices barely move. A few cents here, a few cents there, but never back to where they were. And no one really explains why. They just tell you it's the market. But what if that's only part of the truth? Because the real reason gas prices never drop has nothing to do with oil barrels or supply chains. It's about control, about systems built not to serve consumers, but to squeeze them, slowly, predictably, without enough pain to cause revolt, but just enough to keep profits flowing up the chain. Oil companies are not just energy providers. They're some of the most powerful corporations on the planet, backed by governments, protected by subsidies, and quietly influencing policies through lobbying that rarely makes headlines. When oil prices spike, these companies report record-breaking profits, billions in quarterly gains. CEOs taking home bonuses that rival national budgets. Meanwhile, average families are cutting groceries to afford a commute. The psychology behind pricing is simple. Once people adjust to a higher number, it becomes the new normal. You complain at first, you vent, but eventually you pay, you adapt, and companies count on that. It's called price anchoring. Raise it high, let it settle, then lower it just a little. Not because it helps you, but because it makes you feel like you're winning. But you're not. You're just less outraged. And while you're told it's about oil futures and geopolitical tension, the reality is more calculated. Refineries intentionally reduce output to maintain balance. Countries agree to cut production to stabilize markets. It's dressed in economic jargon, but what it really means is this. They want the prices high, because high prices mean high margins. And if they drop too low, they'll find a way to push them back up. You live in a system designed to keep you paying more, slowly, quietly, and permanently. Behind every gas pump is a chain of influence, and it stretches farther than most people imagine. From OPEC boardrooms to Wall Street trading floors, from national energy policies to private sector billionaires, the flow of money never stops. And at every level, there's one goal: protect the margins. Because oil isn't just fuel, it's leverage. It starts with the producers. Countries with vast oil reserves, Saudi Arabia, Russia, the US, and others, don't just extract oil, they manipulate its availability. When prices dip, they don't panic. They cut supply. They agree, often behind closed doors, to reduce output under the guise of market stability. But what it really does is create scarcity, and scarcity drives price. Then come the speculators. People who have never touched a drop of oil in their lives, but who trade barrels as digital lines on a screen. For them, oil isn't energy. It's a bet, a game. If there's even a hint of unrest in the Middle East or a rumor about refinery issues, futures traders react instantly. They drive prices up, not based on actual shortage but on anticipated fear. And you pay the price at the pump the very next day. But the manipulation doesn't stop there. Governments, supposedly looking out for their citizens, are often complicit. Some issue subsidies to oil companies in the name of energy security. Billions of dollars handed over, while those same companies raise prices anyway. Politicians talk tough on inflation, but rarely mention how deeply their campaigns are funded by oil money. Laws that could force transparency or cap excessive profit-taking die quietly in committee rooms. No media coverage, no public outcry, just silence. And then there's the illusion of competition. You pull into a gas station, see the same 3 cents difference between one brand and the next, and believe you have a choice. But behind the scenes, most of these companies source from the same refineries, follow the same pricing strategies, and agree, tacitly or explicitly, not to undercut each other too far. Because if one drops too low, they all lose. So instead, they raise prices together, slowly, strategically, using headlines and geopolitics as cover. Even when the price of crude oil plummets globally, there's always an excuse for why it hasn't hit your local pump yet. It takes time to trickle down. We're still selling older, higher-priced inventory. There's maintenance at the refinery. But notice how fast it rises when oil goes up? Overnight sometimes. That delay only works one way. And it's not in your favor. And this isn't a conspiracy. It's a system. A refined, well-oiled machine where you are the constant, paying more for less, while oil giants rake in record profits year after year. And when they're questioned, they blame everything except their own boardrooms. War, weather, global demand, environmental regulations, whatever it takes to keep the illusion intact. Because if you knew how much of your paycheck was being siphoned off, not by necessity but by design, you wouldn't just be angry. You'd demand answers. But answers are hard to come by when the people in charge of them are also the ones cashing in. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3, where we explore the psychological traps and long-term effects this system creates for everyday people. It's not just about numbers on a gas sign. It's about what those numbers do to people. The pressure, the slow, creeping anxiety every time you fill up and realize your money doesn't stretch as far as it did a month ago. You start cutting things, first luxuries, then essentials. You drive less. You cancel trips. You walk when you used to ride. And all the while, the companies posting billion-dollar profits keep telling you it's temporary. But it never is. Because that's the real trick. They don't just raise prices. They raise expectations. They train you to accept the new normal, and by the time you adapt, they've already set the stage for the next hike. It's not inflation. It's conditioning. You don't riot, you don't rebel, you adjust, you survive. And that's what they count on. Gas prices are psychological warfare in plain sight. Every increase triggers stress, fear, even shame. People blame themselves for struggling. They internalize the hardship. And while media debates play out over global trends and market speculation, the lived reality is simple. Families choosing between gas and groceries, workers driving an hour to jobs that barely cover the commute, single parents calculating whether they can afford to pick up an extra shift if it means burning half a tank. This isn't just economic manipulation, it's emotional erosion. And while you're worrying about how to fill your tank, you're not asking bigger questions, like why governments allow companies with record profits to receive billions in subsidies, or why fuel taxes never seem to go down, even when prices do, or why renewable energy alternatives, cleaner, cheaper, and more sustainable, remain buried under endless bureaucracy and deliberate misinformation. You're kept too busy surviving to organize, too tired to fight, too distracted to dig deeper, and in that exhaustion, the system wins. There's a reason gas prices are always front-page news when they rise, but only footnotes when they fall. The panic serves a purpose. It keeps you looking outward, not upward. Not at the executives raking in bonuses, not at the politicians greenlighting fossil fuel expansion while giving speeches about sustainability, not at the analysts who profit from the volatility itself. And it works. Because even when people suspect the game is rigged, they don't know how. So they drive in silence. They cut corners. They hope the next paycheck stretches just a bit further. And they accept that this is just how the world works. But it's not. It's how the world was built to work. For them, change doesn't come from outrage alone. It comes from knowledge, followed by pressure. The truth is, this system wasn't just built to extract your money. It was built to make you believe you could never challenge it, that the rules of oil markets, gas prices, and corporate profits are too complex for you to understand, that it's just how the world works. But that lie is starting to unravel. People are waking up, not all at once, but steadily. They're asking better questions. They're following the money. They're watching who sits on government energy boards and which politicians get paid by oil lobbies. And they're realizing the solution won't come from waiting for gas prices to drop. It'll come from changing the structure that controls them. Some countries are already moving. Norway, for example, has reinvested its oil wealth into national funds that benefit citizens, not just executives. Others are rapidly adopting electric vehicles, expanding public transportation, and divesting from fossil fuels, not because it's trendy, but because they've seen the trap. They know that as long as oil companies dominate the market, dependency will always be leveraged against the people. And still, progress is slow, because the machine is massive. The propaganda is subtle. It tells you renewables are too expensive, that green energy can't meet demand, that electric cars are only for the elite. But every one of those narratives is crafted by the very industries that profit from your doubt. And as long as you believe them, they win. But here's the truth. The power isn't just in their hands. It's in yours. Every decision, every dollar spent, every politician supported, every question asked, ripples outward. Change doesn't always start with revolutions. Sometimes it starts with awareness, with a parent explaining to their child why gas prices seem unfair, with a teacher breaking down corporate greed in a classroom, with a creator telling stories like this one, because when enough people see the game, they stop playing by its rules. They demand transparency. They call for policy shifts. They vote differently. They support companies that innovate instead of manipulate. And little by little, the illusion cracks. Will gas prices magically fall to what they were a decade ago? No, that era is gone. But can we stop the unchecked rise? Can we redirect the flow of the power? Can we build systems that put people before profit? Yes, but only if we stop accepting excuses. Only if we stop waiting for the market to fix itself. Only if we stop letting the wealthiest corporations in history tell us what's normal. Because the real reason gas prices never drop is that we were never supposed to ask until now.